Good morning, everyone. Well, it's morning on the West Coast. I'm your host, Nick Rishwain, host and co-founder of LegalTechLIVE. For those who are new listeners, new viewers, I have been in the legal tech field for about 7 years. My co-host, Ivan Rakelin, and I have been doing this podcast, this live video podcast, for about the last 2 years. And we have a really great guest today. This is a story we have not told before, although he is a returning guest. So that's an interesting little aspect there. This is about a legal tech startup that has not been able to come to fruition and that they are winding up. And I think this is a really important story for us to tell to our listeners and our viewers. And with that, I'm going to have my co-host, who we're thrilled to have here today, let me say, our guest is Geoffrey Poirier.
Nice.
And he is a returning guest. He's from Subtends.io, and he didn't think that Ivan existed. He thought Ivan might be a bot at one point. And with that, Ivan, please introduce yourself, since it's been a while since you've been with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's great to be finally back again. I think I missed the last couple episodes. And Geoffrey, yes, by you doing that, you challenged me to basically make everything happen so that I could join this podcast, because you do have a definitely interesting story. And I'm really happy that you're able to actually share both the startup portion of it, and then, as most people know, like 9 in 10 startups actually don't make it. So, but the people that do continue with their startup journey, by the second or third time, they're going to be successful, because the business that you make the first time, the network that you make, the connections that you make, you can leverage and then use that for your second endeavor or third endeavor. So anyway, real quick, on myself, you already mentioned who I am briefly, Nick. Ivan Rakelin, recovering lawyer. You've heard this so many times, Nick. Recovering lawyer, diplomat, Green Beret turned startup investor and advisor who accidentally ran 50 miles once. I can actually say twice, because I ran a 50-miler a couple of weeks ago, the North Face Endurance Challenge. But no, my passions lie in tech and startups. And as an attorney, I'm always interested in talking to other founders that are involved in the legal tech space. And both Nick and I are non-practicing attorneys, but we do like to evangelize the legal tech space. So with that, with no further ado, let's get into this bad boy.
Geoffrey, please introduce yourself a bit, how you got it. Let me repeat a few items of what I do have for you. And what we do have for Geoffrey, and he's going to expand on this, is that he is the CEO, or now former CEO, of Subtends.io. He's done a lot of multimedia and software design and development since the late 80s, basically walking down the user experience path. And you also say, and this is from your LinkedIn, sprinkled throughout, you've also worn hats like project manager, art director, and technical sales, among others. Tell us some more about yourself, Geoffrey.
Sure. I'm a second-generation computer geek. Not only did my dad work for IBM, and so I grew up around the IBM culture, but you could have gone shopping in the 80s in Dallas and gone to in the mid-80s, and my mom had a software and hardware company that she started up and created down there called Software and Stuff. So I've had a computer since 1977. I wrote my first lines of code in 1980 in BASIC on the Apple II, which was what we had. And those first lines of code were actually was animation. I've got my lineage also is a series of artists and inventors and crazy people that really love computers and technology. So that's really my background. I see it all sort of blends together over time. I don't really draw lines of division across these things anymore. I make software that I think is interesting. That's really my goal at all times.
And this and Subtends was your first venture into the legal technology space, correct?
It really was. This was the first hardcore version of getting into the legal space, and we were, one of the things that's really that I'll talk about religiously is the spectacular people that were on the team. One of the greatest things, and Ivan just mentioned this, so I'll even segue right into this, is the amount of joy and pleasure I got working with these people is so great that not only have I signed on to be an advisor for our former COO for his new thing. Our investor, our pre-seed investor, is starting her own new thing. And I've come on to do some technology work for both of them and advise both of them. Because as Ivan mentioned, when you find the people that you trust, the ability to move faster, to move, without resistance, it amplifies. It gets greater and greater over time. And I've been lucky enough to know these folks for I think both of those folks particularly, one for a decade and the other one for a decade and a half, a little bit longer than that. So yeah, it's great.
Excellent. And just a recap of what Subtends did or was intended to do.
Yeah.
On the homepage, it says artificially intelligent patent tools. Beyond keywords and synonyms, Subtends understands ideas, ensuring a novel, comprehensive, and accurate search. So your AI was supposed to provide insightful analysis and visually presents your unique view into the patent universe. In the time it takes to explain your patent search to an attorney or a paralegal, Subtends' guide provides results. Tell people what that means. How
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll give a quick background of how the whole doggone thing started, okay?
Right.
Years and years and years ago, I started paying attention to, because I'm I love entrepreneurs and I love all that stuff. I was watching a lot of people just complain, which is a flag that there's a problem, right? Mm-hmm. That there's an opportunity there. Complain about patents and software patents, and they were being driven bananas by this. Mm-hmm. So I started paying attention to that. I have no legal experience whatsoever. I have no degrees in anything, you guys. So anybody can do this kind of stuff. So I started paying attention. This is right around 2010, 2011, something like this. I started really, really paying attention to that. Mm-hmm. And the same thing kept happening. And I started getting a little bit more, I started investigating a little bit deeper. And it was, well, what are they complaining about? What is the problem? What's going on here? And one of the big things that came out of the whole experience of studying all this stuff was people can't find prior art. People don't know why they should patent something or why they shouldn't patent something. And it happens on these different levels. Entrepreneurs want a point of feedback to say, hey, is this even worth researching? Should I even do this, or should I not try to get a patent? Should I not even get into this space? And so as an entrepreneur, I wanted that point of feedback. In-house law firms wanted a different point of feedback. And then law firms themselves that are patent focused and IP focused, they wanted their own unique point of feedback. So, for example, for the patent firms, they want to get into litigation, and they want to be able to disrupt patents and prove that there's no prior art in any way, shape, or form. And it's really, really, really crazy hard to search and find this stuff. Okay, and for a lot of reasons. Okay, from the inventor entrepreneur standpoint. If you've really invented something novel, not only did you invent the whole concept, but you have to invent the vocabulary to go along with that concept and support it. And what'll happen invariably is I'll have my idea in my lab and I'll call it these things. And another person in Sweden or South Korea will invent the same thing and call it their own words in their own ways. And that's really hard to translate across these two giant chasms, and to be able to search that sort of universally. And that was one of the big goals. That was definitely one of the big goals from the entrepreneur side of things, which obviously I'm coming from. Then the in-house law firms, they really want just streamlined efficiency in being able to get their patent through as quickly as possible. And then the law firms themselves, again, they want, after it gets to that point of litigation, they want to be able to disrupt an existing patent, for example.
Okay. And that's what Subtends was created to achieve.
Yes.
Try and identify this terminology, to train using artificial intelligence so that you could search and identify existing technology or existing patents or ones that essentially you were going to, say, file suit against for infringement or some sort of an intellectual property lawsuit. Is what you were. Okay.
That's exactly right. And real quick, it was when we started thinking about this, or when I started thinking about this, it was an impossible task. Okay. And there was a certain point at which I saw something from IBM Watson, and that triggered everything. Remember, I'm a second generation IBM. My dad was an IBMer, so I always pay attention to IBM, and I know that that they love patents. Like, that's part of their culture. So a couple of years ago, I saw a demo of something specific from IBM, and I called them up and I went, "Oh my gosh, hey guys, can we try this thing?" And they're trying to get off the ground with the Watson team. The Watson team is spectacular, by the way, spectacular. And we met some great folks over there, like Sam Bobo, for example, and we built a little thing, a little proof of concept, and the results that were coming back from this thing was ridiculous. It was just like, oh, this will work. This is gonna work. So, and it was all related to sort of graph databases and how suggestions and recommendations can come across that whole thing. So once we saw that proof of concept would work, then we started get really hardcore investigating, and that's when things took off. That's when we said, all right, let's go all in. This is great. Let's give it a whirl. And that's where it started.
So you had a proof of concept.
This was when?
Go ahead, Ivan.
Yeah, so that was a little over a year ago, to be quite honest. We started playing with Watson. I started playing with Watson a long time ago. As an R&D guy, as an inventor guy, I started playing with IBM Watson the second I could get a hold of it, because it has some fascinating capabilities, and I have to touch these things. I love playing with this stuff. Once we got this proof of concept working, and again, this is going to be March of last year, February of last year, and it was really compelling. It was really compelling, where we could say, "Hey, we want to look at this stuff over here." Give me your best guess as to what results over here will match, and this is for a patent search, will match Tom Waits. Like, there's no reason why Tom Waits should ever get a result in any search engine related to patents at all. That's non-comprehensible. And it still gave results back. And it gave results back, and it told why. And this was using concept insights, which we'll get to that story in a little bit. And it was like, it's giving us results. It's giving us answers. It's giving us whatever its best guess is, as opposed to, I can't find it. And that threshold was really the thing that drove it.
Okay. Ivan, go. I do have a question, but I don't want to. We're off a little bit because it's been a while. We're off a little bit on our give and take. So please jump in if you have something.
Oh, yeah.
No, absolutely. So again, I'm coming in a little late because you know this backstory a little bit better than I do. I mean, I find it fascinating. My line of questioning would probably focus more on the transition of your idea, and then obviously you put in some, sweat into it, as well as some of your own capital, and then you probably reached the point where you decided, this is not going to be feasible. And I'd like you to tell a story of where that tipping point was.
Sure, absolutely. So once we had a proof of concept and we really formulated the team, my co-founders Don and Brad Schilt, spectacular guys. We built this thing, and we went and chatted with Whitney Wogan, our first investor. She's starting her own new thing up, as I mentioned earlier. So we chatted with Matt and Whitney, Matt Van Warmer, and we said there was a point at which we're like, all right, does this work? Can we sell this? Can we sell this? Can we sell this? What is the market? Can we get revenue? Can we get revenue? And the IBM Watson team, Sam Bobo over there again, I said, hey, Sam, what's the odds that we can chat with the head of IBM patents? Which the odds should be zero. Okay, they should be zero. I'm a knucklehead who works in the lab here. But Sam set it up. Okay, so we get to go sit down. Oh my gosh, I'm going to forget his name right now, and that's going to drive me bananas. But so we get to go sit down with the head of IBM patent law, okay? These guys do the most patents in the US every year, 23 years in a row. They've got no reason to sit with us, except for the fact that that they understood that Watson and patent law matched together really, really well. And they've been waiting for somebody to come along to prove that it works. We got to sit with these guys, talk with them about what we're trying to accomplish and how we're trying to accomplish. And there was just a lot of alignment there because, hey, our proof of concept works. Here's where we're heading with it. These guys want to reduce their cost and streamline their process and create better results. And it also lines up with the IBM Watson team themselves. When we got the word that we could sit down with these guys and chat with them, that's when we went to Matt and Whitney to get some pre-seed funding for the whole project. They were amazing. They wrote us a check and said, you guys totally go do this, go kick ass. So we went over there. We got a yes from these guys to say, hey, yeah, we'll beta test your stuff. And once you get that kind of a yes, it's like, oh, for goodness sakes, let's make this happen. So then we spent the next 3 months. We got the next 3 months. This is back in March last year, late March. We got everything all set up, and we architected our solution around a service under the Watson umbrella. Okay, there are dozens of services under the Watson umbrella. So let's be really clear about that. And we architected around one called Concept Insights, which you'll notice the past tense here was spectacular and really, really suited what we were trying to accomplish. We got to chat with the folks who created Concept Insights. They were super excited because they were definitely looking for something to really just shine and show exactly how powerful this stuff was. So we architected, we built the solution around Concept Insights, and we got the word, and I'm going to say this is in July, a week before we're ready to release our beta. They're shutting down Concept Insights in an emergency fashion.
Ooh.
Okay, so this is a big deal. This is a big deal. This is a single point of failure lesson. Okay, single point of failure, right? This got shut down. So we actually reached out to IBM, to the Watson team again, and said, hey, we signed an agreement with you guys that we can't pull down our data. Can we pull down our data? They were amazing and said, totally, you guys have a couple of days to do this. And I said, can we have 10 days to do this, for God's sakes? That would be really, really helpful, because it turns out there's no blog posts out there on the internet which say how to reverse engineer artificially intelligent data sets.
Right.
So we have to invent the methodology, then test the tech, then pull down as much as we possibly can on a timeline. This thing is getting shut down. So we managed to do that. IBM was incredible. They said, hey, sign this new agreement. You guys can pull it down, do whatever you want. But this thing is shutting down. Don't put anything new into this thing. And so how it worked out was, by this thing is getting shut down, we're assuming 8 o'clock in the morning on a Monday morning, East Coast time, and I'm in Mountain time, and it was at 5:55 in the morning that our last data set came down and got stored right here on the hard drives. So that's what I've been calling an extinction level event. Like this could easily shut down the whole company.
All right.
And I went, no, this is not. We're not shutting down. We're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this. So we're going to fight through this.
So the entrepreneur in you said, we're gonna do it on our own. We're gonna fight through this issue, even though we don't have this available to us anymore. We're gonna power on through.
Absolutely. I want. It's innate in me to be that individual, to be that person. Like, oh, all right, we're having a bad day. Doesn't matter. Let's dance and move on down the line. So then it was, all right, great. Now we have to re-architect and re-engineer and rebuild and reconstruct and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And at the same time, Watson was actually releasing some really stellar new services that's based out of Alchemy API, which is great. They have some great tools to build all kinds of new stuff. there was a mistake that I certainly made that I want to talk about, and this was one of the lessons that I learned, which was related to. We learned this at Techstars. I'm in Boulder in the Front Range, and so one of the big startup communities out here is Techstars, and really ridiculously great folks. Tons of information out there from these folks. We went to a few Techstars events. Got invited to a couple of other fun little things, and one of the lessons that we learned there was this practice called an impact and uncertainty exercise, which is, hey, what's the riskiest thing? Now prove how much of an impact is it going to have? Prove that get it out of this risky point, get it out of this risk side of things. And when we went through that exercise, and again, this is absolutely on my shoulders, it was the riskiest thing that we had was getting all of the data out of the system. Okay? Getting all this data out of the system, and inventing a way to reconstitute this stuff, to re-architect this,
to essentially build your own version of Concept Insights.
To be able to take the data out of that and basically port it over to another service, another solution.
Okay.
I think it's probably even a better way.
Better way to describe that. Okay.
So we had, and again, really, I had in my mind that was a solved issue. What I failed to do was reclassify that to say, prove the data is good.
Okay.
Prove the data can be reconstituted. And as we had to, we had to go talk to our customers, our potential customers. We had to keep ramping up on the market side and market research and marketing. We still had to ramp up in terms of fundraising. So we got set back by a ton of time, and I estimated that it was going to be about 3 months, 4 months, and I'm an optimist and obviously an idiot at the same time. And so it was, by the time we got to re-architecting the data, which really started happening in December, as we're getting results out of this stuff, because we're planning a release in January. As we're getting this data back, we started looking at this and like, oh, this is really messier. It's just messier and noisier than so we're going to have to, as we re-architect this, we're going to have to filter and filter and filter and filter. And so then it's great. Now we're re-engineering all human data, all human knowledge. It's like, all right, great. So now we have to figure out how many concepts there are for humans, which is a weird thing, right? How many concepts are there? How many different things do humans know?
And this is not available in a blog post either, I'm assuming.
This is all not available in a blog post.
Right.
Although we came up with a really interesting solution, which I'm happy to talk about. But by the time we got to the point of, and again, this is really late December. We got tons of and the pressure's building and pressure's building. We got a release coming out.
And I'm assuming, just for our listeners and viewers, I'm assuming money is an issue at this point, correct?
Oh yeah. This is a startup, so
Right.
burn rate is everything. We only took on pre-seed. The second we knew that the solution worked and we could prove that people wanted to use it, then we were going to go after seed. So we were trying to be really respectful of that, and we also needed to know the day people were going to start paying for this. Right. Once we could, and we had our roadmap, and we had what we thought was going to work, and then all of a sudden that all just evaporates real quick.
Okay.
So then we have to re-engineer that whole thing.
Okay.
By the time really early January is rolling around, and we've got just mad hours of trying to get this data to fly again, and trying to get it from one solution into another solution, any other solution at that point. It turned around. It's like, oh man, this is going to take another 9 months. And as an optimist, this is going to take another 9 months. So that really means 12, 16, 18 months of effort in order to make that happen without guaranteed revenue at the end of that path.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is not the ideal scenario to keep going. So, and this was right at about our third extinction level event. And it was like, okay, I don't want to stop. I don't want to let down any shareholders. I don't want to let down anybody on the team. I don't want to let down any customers. And this is really, really, really risky. This is risky beyond risky. I don't want to go. I can't prove our case to be able to say, hey, give us some more money in order to do this. Now, our investors, by the way, were willing to do that. So they rule. And that's like that speaks again to Ivan's concept around getting a trust and finding the right people. So again, Matt and Whitney, thank you on that. So cool. There's a little bit of that. So finally in January, we made a decision to shut down. It took a little while to emotionally work through that because it's really a big deal when you've been studying something for 7 years or 6 years or something like this, and then you put thousands and thousands and thousands of hours into it, written a ton of code, talked to a ton of people. You don't want to let anybody down, and addressing that sort of the emotional aspects of that took a little bit of time. And then so finally we shut down really officially, I think in February. It took another couple of weeks before okay, I can write a blog post about this and share that information. And I'm still working through some of that stuff. Mm-hmm. But that's how that happened. So there you go.
Very, very interesting, Geoffrey. Ivan, do you have something about more from the angel investing side of things questions you would ask?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, Jeff, on that side of things, so you basically consulted with your pre-seed investor or investors to see if it was a good point to essentially stop the operation and not really
absolutely
other funding, because it was just, you hit a point where you just couldn't really articulate in a way that was convincing to bring in more capital. Is that pretty much what happened?
To me, to them, like it was one of the most difficult things is you have to have this bizarre dichotomy of fearless optimist, and pragmatic realist at the exact same time. And being passionate, you can really just stay on this one side of being super hyper optimistic. We started getting better practices in the company side of things to be able to say, hey, this is realistic and not realistic. This is longer away, further away. Our market is different than we think it is, by having all of those conversations and getting outside input across the board there. Once it became really apparent, and we had conversations with leadership, with Don and Brad, with Brad and Don, it was, hey, let's go talk to Matt and Whitney. We have really one of the things that's crazy important about the relationship between all of this is you have to just say what's really going on, and you have to trust that the other people, it doesn't matter what their reactions are in communicating this stuff. It's like there's no way we're trying to be malicious toward each other. We're trying to support each other in the best manner possible, because Matt and Whitney and I have known each other for 17 years. We're capable of having that type of a conversation where it's like, look, this is going to suck. I think we're going to have to shut this down. Here's why. This, like, if you say keep going, and like, I will go till the ends of the earth to make sure that this happens. And I think it's wrong. Just, I want to be really clear. And it's not to, and by them being able to witness all of the effort and all the work that we put into the whole thing, they knew that it wasn't coming from a place of, I give up. It wasn't coming from that. It was coming from, the risk reward ratio is just way out of whack. It's so out of whack. And we've been working together for a year on this with basically nobody getting paid. This is a ton of sweat equity, and again, thousands and thousands of hours. And we're asking this same team to, hey, can you give us another 12 months without really getting paid? That's there's an expense there just in trust and trying to make sure that there's a balance. Exactly. And I want to work with these people again for the rest of my life.
There was no really opportunity to pivot into something else, right? Because it was just literally
not exactly. No. And Not really. If we had been building our own technology, our own AI technology from the ground up, that would have made that, instead of architecting around somebody else's technology, that would have been a different option. And so I think that's exactly. I would have loved, if there was an option to pivot into something else specific. I would have taken that opportunity. That being said, again, it's like, all right, well, now we've got another whole year of. Okay, all right, we gotta redo
that
this.
Begs the next question, Jeff. So all that work, sweat equity, and just that experience of working on the team, and then also trying to iterate to success. Like, how are you going to take that and apply it to your next endeavor? Because as an entrepreneur, you're an entrepreneur for life.
Oh yeah, yeah.
There's got to be something else. Or there's probably like 20 projects in your brain that you're thinking of.
And I think I'd like to add to that, Ivan. I think this would be a good part. We're about 35 minutes. I think this would be a good part for you to answer that question and say what we had talked about over Twitter, how you view this as, you could quote unquote call it a failure, but you really have gotten a ton out of it. Maybe you can also add that to answering Ivan's question.
Absolutely. So speaking, I'll leap right into that. So there's a lot that goes on, as I talked about, with the whole closing of everything down and letting everything down. There's the opportunity for oneself to feel like you're a failure. And everybody talks about, oh, if you learn a bunch, then you're not a failure. If you learn a bunch, you're not a failure. If you try, you're not a failure, for God's sakes, okay? And when you're trying something as crazy as this, artificially intelligent patent tools, like, nobody believes that this can be done anyway. I still know it can, but the amount that I learned along the way, and I'm going to give another shout out to Brad, our COO and co-founder. Like, Brad actually has two success. He's a co-founder. He co-founded and had two successful exits to the tune of $100 million on two other projects in the past. Like, the amount that I learned from him alone, let alone from hanging out with the Techstars folks and also interacting with the entrepreneur communities that are all around, gives me the insight to be able to de-risk and to make the next projects run smoother, run more efficient. To do some recovery in terms of the failure side of things, I made sure to keep an eye on mental health, depression and all this other stuff. You're a creator, something dies, and oh God. So from my aspect, it was, all right, I'm going to mourn for this long, 6 weeks, a fixed period of time. I'm going to watch a ton of stand-up comedy. I'm going to read some stand-up comedy. I make sure, I'm at a standing desk so that I'm dancing around.
You're doing that right now, right? Standing desk?
Standing desk, yeah. Oh, totally.
Totally.
So pay attention to the physiology, pay attention to moods and all this other stuff. So the lessons learned, all of the lessons learned from this, which is you can use these, I'm going to say they're simple. They're simple managerial tools that you just use and reuse in order to keep that external view of how progress is going. Like, the foundation of the next thing is built on these things, as opposed to, hey, we learned it a little bit after the fact, and now we're trying to implement it. It's going to be foundational from that aspect. What's stellar is, again, all of the relationships that are built up. I'm going to go to we got Boulder Startup Week happening next week, and I get to go visit all of these people that have been really communicative and very supportive, and I get to be a part of that.
I actually take this moment to ask, do you know probably Ashley Colpart? You've bumped into her?
I can't say that I do. Can't say that I do, but I'm going to keep my eyes open.
Corridor?
Pardon?
She's the founder of the Food Corridor.
I'll pay attention, and I'm going to look for her.
Your parts there.
Yeah,
she's in Colorado. She's heavily involved. Anyway, sorry about that.
No,
that didn't go in the direction that I wanted to.
Communicating with the people is one of the most fun things. I'm an introvert. I'm crazy introverted, as a matter of fact. But still, having those communications with those folks and meeting those folks is like, oh yeah, you know what I'm talking about when I say, you get to have those connections. And then it's also really a blast to hear how people have these giant wins. It's great to hear, hey, I was just lucky. I was in the right place at the right time. I was showing this thing and that people liked it. And I'm like, how can you like that? I think it's crazy. All of those lessons, I have so many lessons around fundraising. People talk about, I hate doing the whole pitch thing. Like, if you hate doing the pitch thing, here's something. Like, that means you don't like talking about what you're creating, for God's sakes. Like, love getting to brag about your team. Love bragging about the thing you're creating. Love the solution you're creating. Like, I want to pitch. I already want to pitch the next thing. Like, that's something I would just give everybody. Like, this is the polar opposite of what everybody talks about, but just love pitching. The thing that's brilliant about pitching is it refines your thinking. It creates a solid, crystal clear, explain it like I'm 5 vocabulary set that allows you to it illustrates exactly how well you understand what you're talking about. Love getting challenged by folks. Let me give a shout out to the Kauffman Foundation. Does 1 million cups. Maybe you guys have heard about this, but all across the United States, a whole groups of entrepreneurs will get together and say, hey, you want to give a presentation, you get a half an hour, and then 20 people are going to try to pick it apart in a kind way because they're fellow entrepreneurs, but they're going to shine the light on this stuff. There's a great one in Boulder and another great one in Denver. So thanks to Jim Sears that did the Boulder one. These folks are like, hey, I don't understand what you're selling. I don't understand what you're talking about. I don't understand this. I don't understand this. Take that feedback and go, oh, great. Okay, great. I got to, great. Rewrite. Practice. Get comfortable talking about yourself, for God's sakes. Again, as an introvert, that's not something I'm really excited about. And be honest at all times. Like, that's so painless. It's so much more painless. You can be optimistic and honest and self-aware and all the stuff. And the more that all aligns, alignment was one of my favorite concepts that I got from Brad. Again, the more alignment you find alignment with the values of the market you're trying to get. You find alignment with the team you're building in order to create the stuff. You find alignment with your investors because they're going to be around for a long, long, long time. So make sure that the more alignment you find, keep looking for that and keep double checking that the alignment still exists, because 3 months, things change. In 6 months, things change. In a year, things change. So keep making sure and refining the alignment and double checking the alignment at all times. Like, these are some of the big lessons that I have.
That's excellent, Geoffrey. I want to ask, because I think this would also be important this was a big endeavor that you were trying to accomplish, and you said, possibly within the next 9, but more like 18 months, you probably could have gotten to the point where you could start bringing in revenue. For our listeners, our viewers, and replay viewers, tell us what number, obviously, if you had unlimited funds, it sounds like you could have made this happen. Is there a number that you think could have gotten you to that, you say 24 months out, where revenue could have begun?
That's an awesome question.
Is there a number that you think that would have been able to make this happen? And
we worked on a couple of different budgets, and you have to keep in mind that my personal mentality is I'm as lean as possible. I would so rather have $1 less than $1 more. And so I had to actually recalibrate this in order to make sure that I was operating in the right way. Like, because I'm hyper lean, I'm bootstrap as long as you can go kind of guy. So we were looking at numbers that range from $600K to $1.6 million. Okay. And again, if there was evidence that we knew that these people were going to be paying money on this day to use this service, I would have asked for anything in that range. I would have been happy with anything in that range. One of the key things that we really needed to do was I write code all the time, but man, oh man, like, we needed real great hyper talent, way beyond what I was capable of, which is why we were contacting Joey and Nick. These guys are incredible developers with whom we worked with in the past, and they're expensive, and they should be expensive because they're spectacular. And to get everybody paid the right quantity and the right amount was really going to be key. So if it was on the short end of that, if it was going to be 9 months, it was like, all right, let's try to grit our teeth and get through this for the 600 side, for 750. For something really, really grand, like if it's going to take 18 months, don't just double that number. It was the mental model. Add a little 25%, another 30% on top of that, because stressing about that runway is a monster drag. It's like a tax on your mind. So it was going to be in that range.
Okay, and I think that's important to know for somebody who's taking on an endeavor like this. You really have to have a budget, and it's got to be realistic. And
yes,
but that's also, if you're asking for that money from an investor that may just disappear if we can't make this happen, that's a lot of money. Any amount of money is really kind of a lot of money to speculatively give to somebody. And so $600,000, it's a ton of money, and you have to be, and you have a duty as an officer of the company. As a human and as an officer, that it sounds like you had to have a real come to Jesus moment, I guess is the best way to say it, with your pre-seed investors saying, I can't really take any more of your money based on what we have at this moment.
That's exactly right. That's that's who I am. I mean, there's I need to have the answers to be able to say, yeah, look, I'm capable of withstanding a lot of risk as a human, as a person. That's in my nature. That's in my character. And this was even outside of my range of risk. I'm not going to do that because, as I said, not only do I want to be able to stare in the mirror and be able to look at myself and say, I busted my ass. I was as honest as I could possibly be. I was as self-aware as I could possibly be. I want to be able to go over to Matt and Whitney's house. I want to go say hi to these guys. I get to see them next week. I'm excited. And to not damage these relationships. Like, we're humans interacting as humans, and we always have to remember that. So there's a baseline there, and there's the duty to the shareholders, and that still is framed at that exact thing. It's like, and I kept saying this to the team. It's like, the one thing I want, the takeaway, like my personal mission is to retire with you guys. That's my mission. Okay. Like, we're going to do that by doing patents and artificial intelligence and redefine how all that stuff works. But my singular mission is to retire with you guys. I can still have that same mission with all of these guys, with all these folks.
The relationships are maintained despite the, as we've said, quote unquote, failure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Ivan, do you have any final questions or thoughts for Geoffrey before we wrap this one up for the day?
No, I just wanted to say thank you for coming on a second time, because a lot of folks, when they, quote unquote, consider a failure, which we say quote unquote, is just another experience that we put in our toolbox, right? Absolutely. But I really appreciate you, because most people don't have that, self-courage to come on board and publicly explain what actually transpired. And I think the transparency that you bring is hopefully going to be contagious in the startup community. And that's how we all learn collectively. And at the end of the day, what is AI, right? You're taking human knowledge and collating it so that the next group of people that uses that data set can improve on their lives and then be more efficient or whatever. So I really, I want to say thank you.
It's totally my pleasure. It's absolutely my pleasure. There's a lot of support in the background. I want to make sure that for my team, the investors, there's even, the startup community in Boulder, Techstars, all these other folks. Fake Grimlock of all people. Fake Grimlock is great, a lot of fun. Startups Anonymous. There's a lot of stuff out there, and I think it's becoming more and more obvious. It's becoming easier to be more transparent about the failures, about the misses. I'm standing on the shoulders of all those folks. just like as you mentioned with the AI, we're standing on the shoulders of
Yeah,
all that.
because you heard of that. Like in New York, people ask you like, "Oh, you're a startup guy. How many failures do you have?" And they're like, "Oh, you already failed twice. I don't want to invest in you." And then in Silicon Valley, it's like, "Wait, how many failures do you have? 3? I definitely want to invest in your next one." Because you've already hashed out all the problems and issues, and you still have the motivation and drive. So I think with your next one, it'll be a lot easier.
I hope so. I feel really good about it. I understand. Like one of the again, another takeaway is like I understand how to support the investors and to make sure that remember that they're, first of all, they're humans, so they all have different motivations. To find as much alignment with investors as possible. Absolutely, and being transparent, as you exactly said about, what did you learn? What did you learn? The more you learn, the more opportunity you're going to have a chance to succeed in the future, and to keep running down that path is to get back up and to do it again is actually fun. I mean, it's you ran 50 miles as you say, by accident. It's fucking madness, and you did it again. That's again double madness.
The second one doesn't count as an accident.
Yeah,
If you don't learn your lesson after the first time, then it's intentional.
I can't actually use the story if it was an accident, because I went like a quarter mile. I took a wrong turn. Luckily, some pedestrian out there was just like, "Hey, I think some of your other people that are running this thing went that way." I was like, "Are you serious?" He's like, "Yeah." So I go back and I get back on the trail. I was like, "Oh, thank goodness." Because if I would have kept going, I wouldn't have made it again.
And I do want
to. You need those outside individuals to help you out, right?
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're
there you
in
go.
the right
There's
direction.
outside perspective right there.
That's right. And I agree with what Ivan said. I really did, when I started telling people that I was having somebody back on whose startup didn't materialize entirely. It was interesting because a lot of the mutual friends Ivan and I have in the entrepreneurial field, several of them who know this about how you have to, when you get knocked down, you have to get up. Several of them couldn't believe you were willing to come back on and talk about it. And I thought, but I feel like as an entrepreneur, you should understand that he's willing to talk about that, because all of the information that we see available to entrepreneurs, and there's a ton of it throughout social media, says that you have to get up. So why are you having, it really made me wonder when I talked to some of them, why are they having such a hard time understanding that he's willing to do it? And when I talked to the lady with the growth goal, who I'm going to put you in touch with, Alicia Kinchlow, she said, that's fantastic that he's willing to come back on. And we both agreed that I think it shows a level of integrity. Look, this didn't happen. And I like that you call it a miss, not a failure. It was a miss. It's like that. You took the jump shot and I missed. Do I just stop playing the game?
Right.
You go for the rebound.
Yeah.
And then you go for the 3.
Exactly. So I really do think that
the third time is going to be a charm.
Going to be a charm. Yeah,
I think Jeff's going to be on the show a third time, and it's going to be amazing.
I think so. Well, yeah, Jeff, will you have? Are some of the other things that you have in the cooker related to legal technology or patents right now? Can you share anything about what's in the cooker, or is it too early?
I'm happy to. I'm going back to a project which I started in 2010. Okay. Which I built a tool for myself, and I didn't really know what it was because I'm an inventor, and sometimes I don't know what I'm creating. So what happened was I captured 6.5 years of data on myself. And what I did was I measured the distance between what I intended to accomplish and what I accomplished in reality. And so I'm building a tool that's related to artificial intelligence around that. So it's called Meometer. It's about measuring myself.
Oh, cool.
You measure yourself. It's not legal tech. I'm happy to come back and chat with you guys about anything, anytime, anyhow, anywhere.
We appreciate that. And where can our visitors, our viewers, our listeners, where can they find you if they're just wowed by your willingness? What's the best way to get in touch with? Because I imagine the Subtends.io website may not be live indefinitely.
Not so long, not so much longer.
Right.
So you can go visit my website. I have a blog out there, and it's at geoffreypoirier.com. I'm
Spell it.
GeoffreyPoirier.com. I don't have anything up here. But definitely I'm on the Twitter. That's where my mind can work in the Twitter space pretty well. And then you can also go to meometer.com. If you can't spell it, that means I've done my job wrong.
Right on. And do spell out the name, because you spell Geoffrey a little differently than most.
Sure, yeah. This one's crazy, you guys. You ready for this? Geoffrey, and the last name Poirier. P as in pterodactyl. No, P as in Paul. Oirrier. Again, Geoffrey, Geoffrey. Poirier, Poirier.
Monsieur Geoffrey, ravi de vous connaître. Very pleasureful to meet you.
Hey, likewise. Thanks for having me on again, you guys. I really appreciate it
so much.
Yep. Thanks for this experience. It's very cathartic. It's very nice to have this, and I hope it helps other folks. And if anybody needs a pep talk, like they need to get pushed through the next barrier, reach out to me. I'm happy to just get on a video chat and go, all right, go, or, oh God, shut it down. Don't be mad.
That's fantastic. And don't disappear right away, Jeff. When we stop recording, we'll still be in here. So don't feel like you have to back out too soon.
Cool.
Just want to wrap up for our listeners. This was episode 28 of LegalTech Live. Our returning guest was Geoffrey Poirier, and we were thrilled to have our co-host Ivan Raiklen back. Ivan,
honored and humbled to be back in the mix. Ivan Raiklen.
It's nice to meet you, man.
Thanks again, everybody. Check us on the replay at LegalTech.live or on LegalTechLIVE.com. Thanks again, and have a wonderful day.